Happy Halloween, everyone. 'Tis the season for spooky screams, ghosts, trick or treats, and all the above. And obviously, it's the time to watch some good horror movies. Now, what makes a good horror movie? Obviously, a captivating villain, an awesome soundtrack, and in my opinion, some legendary scream queens. Those actresses who have fought monsters, killers, and nightmares, and who have screamed their way into movie history. In today's top 10, the first top 10 I've done in a good while, I'm going to count down the top 10 scream queens who defined the horror genre. This is in really no particular order, but it's in a little bit of an order. But anyway, happy Halloween, everyone. This is Tia, and let's get to the top 10 scream queens. Before I actually get to the top 10, I do want to say please make sure that you're liked and subscribed. And then also a brief little Scream Queen history from Wikipedia says the prominence of women in horror films dates back to the silent film era, such as the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1920 and Nosferatu in 1922. George Fentelstein, film historian and senior vice president of theatrical catalog marketing at Warner Home Video, states women screaming in terror has been a Hollywood mainstay, even when films are silent. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go. Here's the top 10 Scream Queens. At number 10, we're going to do Toni Collette. You may not immediately think Scream Queen, but I believe that the movie Hereditary solidified her status. That woman definitely has some pipes in that movie. It was not your typical horror movie, but her performance in it was over the top, raw, emotional, and it was just so powerful that I could not help but put her here as a Scream Queen. So, you know what? She gets the honorary top spot. Hereditary, Toni Collette, bam. All right, number 9, we have Danielle Harris. She is a veteran in the horror world. She first came to our attention as Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. And she just brings this like chilling innocence to the Halloween series. And then she also actually came back for the Rob Zombie reboot. So she definitely gets a spot on our Scream Queen list because what is more Scream Queen-ish than starring in a few Halloween movies? At number 8, we have the one and only Linda Blair. She became an instant horror icon at just 14 years old with her role as Reagan in The Exorcist. I mean, that twisted head turn and demonic voice, it is pure nightmare fuel. And her portrayal of being possessed is probably one of the scariest performances ever. Just ask your parents, or even now at this point, your grandparents, and I guarantee you they were all terrified of The Exorcist. And that could not have been possible without the one and only Linda Blair. Number 7, we have Sigourney Weaver. And this might be a real hot take and everything because you're like, her as a scream queen, she is an absolute badass, obviously. And yes, she is a badass, but why not also be a scream queen? I love it, right? Alien was a blend of sci-fi and horror. Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of Ellen Ripley has been one of the best and most iconic female performances in movie history ever. And I'm going to put her as a scream queen, right? She may not be your typical from the movie Psycho with hands on her cheeks, screaming at the top of her lungs. But because she was such a badass, I'm going to put her as an honorary Scream Queen for her performance as Ellen Ripley, her toughness, just, she is a legendary person. And at this point, I might even just rename this top 10 the top 10 women in horror films. But yes, Sigourney Weaver, you will always have a place in my heart. At number 6, Vera Farmiga. She is our modern day scream queen, best known for the Conjuring series as Lorraine Warren, a paranormal investigator. She brings a grounded and emotional performance, balancing terror with heartfelt determination. Her partnership with Patrick Wilson has turned The Conjuring into one of the best modern horror franchises. Very much a side note. Do you remember? And more side note. I love like classical like 80s horror films, obviously like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Jason Voorhees and everything like that. Does everyone remember when like Paranormal Activity was the thing that was like overtaking the horror genre? It was not my thing. It might be yours, so I do apologize, but I'm very much happy that we have kind of moved away from things like that and just have gotten really good into like modern day horror. That's just me. That's just me. Anyway, let's move on. Number five, we have Sarah Michelle Gellar. Now, Sarah Michelle Gellar, for all my 90s people, is a iconic 90s horror scream queen. She's best known as Buffy. She's best known for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and The Grudge. This woman was working overtime to be a scream queen in the 90s. She is taking on supernatural curses, running away from mass killers. She is giving that final girl energy, and I love it. Sarah Michelle Gellar, as a 90s kid, you will be my scream queen. Now, speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street. Number four is Heather Langenkamp. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I do apologize, but she is the original Freddy Krueger Nightmare survivor. She is a scream queen. Like I remember seeing that movie. I was born in 1990, so obviously I didn't see the movie when it first came out, but I definitely watched it like I want to say early 2000s, and she definitely embodies that scream queen energy. She was one of the most iconic final girls in horror history. She battled Freddy, she outsmarted him, and that was just like so amazing. You cannot talk about the horror movie genre without talking about Heather and her like you know, ding 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 against Freddy Krueger. So number four, Heather Langenkamp. Yes. Number three, we're getting into some classics here. Number three is the legendary Janet Leigh. She is known as one of the she is known for her iconic role in Psycho. Just as I was referencing before, I feel like that is the quintessential scream queen that you think of, that shower scene in Psycho where she is screaming and it is black and white, it's terrifying, it's timeless, and I feel as if that just kicked off the horror movie genre, right? When we think of scream queens, how could you not think of that moment, right? So Psycho is one of the best, most iconic old horror films. I can't even talk right now. It's an Alfred Hitchcock movie and it's amazing. So yes, Janet Leigh, one of the most iconic scream queens, in my opinion, definitely kicked everything off for what we know as scream queens today. Number two is Nev Campbell, who played Sydney, in Scream. I think she's still playing Sydney in Scream, right? But anyway, she brought us the fierce and resilient Sydney Prescott in the Scream franchise. She wasn't just running from the killer, she was fighting back. And her performance made her one of the best modern scream queens. It redefined the horror movie genre in the 90s. Now, I'm going to be real with you. I do obviously like Scream, but I think I like Scary Movie better. And let's be honest, Scream already was a bit of a parody on horror. It was one of those things where it's like it was serious, but definitely had like those parody, also critical moment, like criticizing moments to it. So then it was like to have Scary Movie be a criticism slash parody of a criticism slash parody was pretty amazing. But yes, Nev Campbell, they are still making the Scream movie. So there you go. One of the longest lasting horror movie franchises, and I don't think that would be possible without our scream queen, Nev Campbell. Now let's get to number one. Now I told you before that this was not in any particular order, but come on, number one has to be Jamie Lee Curtis. It has to be none other than Jamie Lee Curtis. Her role as Laurie Strode in the Halloween franchise has made her the ultimate scream queen. Her fighting Michael Myers over several decades, it's just she's always bringing a new intensity to the role, even with the new ones that have come out. She's paved the way for all scream queens, and she's just a badass. Like I talked before with the like rivalry of like Heather and Freddy Krueger, but we cannot talk about like scary 80s slasher horror icons and their rivalry against these women without talking about Michael versus Jamie Lee Curtis, aka Laurie Strode. Amazing. Absolutely love it. There are so many amazing Scream Queens, right? Who can actually confine it to a top 10? These are just my opinions when it comes to Scream Queens. Obviously, I want you to let me know who you consider the ultimate Scream Queen. It's Halloween. I hope everyone is doing something spooky today, but also be safe. If you're going trick or treating, obviously be safe. I want to see pictures of your costumes. Please make sure that you are tagging us on Twitter at Geek Vibes Nation. Let's see, right? I haven't dressed up in a few years. It's been like the extent of some makeup or something like that, but I want to see cool costumes, honestly. So let's get this done. Please make sure you're liking and subscribing. I know I haven't come out with a top 10 in a hot minute, but I do hope to do them more in the future. But in the meantime, please make sure that you enjoyed this please make sure you like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this top 10, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.